Hey, what's up YouTube? This is CJ. Gonna give you guys a quick update on the Reef. This video we're gonna focus on some of my SPS failures here recently, and then we're gonna follow up on that ick flare-up I had a week ago, kind of update you guys on my Stocklist situation. So I'm gonna keep it short and sweet. Hope you guys enjoy it. Now before we get going too far, I do want to take a second of my time and say thank you. Because of all you guys' love and support, I was finally able to cross over that 3,000 subscriber mark. Now for anyone that's new to my channel, or if it's your first time seeing my tank, I did just finish a 4-part series on recording your reef tank with your phone. Cover all the tips and tricks to make it easy for you guys. I'm trying to encourage everyone to document the hobby and join this great community on YouTube that we have. So I'll put that link in the top right. Definitely check it out. So as far as my reef tank goes today, 10 months in so far, I've avoided any major issues. Of course, I've had to deal with hair algae and cyano and everything everyone always has to deal with reef tanks as far as it maturing. My latest issues, dealing with ick, that's to be expected because I didn't quarantine my fish. That's a whole nother story. But this update, we're going to jump into what's been happening here lately. Haven't had any new additions. Tank's been running on neutral for the most part, but it's still always something to share with you guys. So let's go ahead and get to it. All right, so the first thing I want to show you guys is going to be my purple torch. He's been in the tank, I would say 8 of the 10 months it's been running. It was one of my first large show pieces that I actually purchased for the tank. And really, I'm really satisfied with how well it's been doing. It's actually been doing so well that it's starting to kind of cause me some issues. I'm going to kind of explain that to you here in a second. But as far as corals go, it says 20 plus heads, great color. It's purple with white tips. And really, it's getting bigger and bigger every day. I would say when it's fully open, it's roughly softball size, sometimes even bigger. And with a coral that big and this much flow and that much movement, you're bound to have issues. Now, that's not to say I haven't done everything in my power to avoid issues. And by avoiding issues, I'm really talking about being strategic with your coral placement. It's all about understanding the flow in your tank. In this area of my tank, it really goes from left to right. So I try to make sure I don't put anything downwind or to the right of my torch coral. Everything's all good. Now, the problem comes in whenever my MP10 ramps down on reef crest mode, the flow almost stops and the return pumps from the JBJ really get things going the opposite direction. And that's when the problem starts. So I'm going to show you guys exactly what happens when that happens. It's definitely not a good thing. So a few weeks ago, I did add a few frags, a couple of SPS frags, some button polyps, some zoanthids, different things to help fill in this left side of the tank. I thought I had them far enough from the torch coral, from my experience with watching how big it opened. Unfortunately, I was wrong. It's like this thing has a sixth sense. Once it recognized these corals were close to it, it constantly sends out these long sweeper tentacles. It's like it's on a mission, so definitely gonna have to remedy this situation, but I'm gonna show you guys the damage it's done. All right, so it's gonna be a prime example. On the right is how it looked before. On the left, especially on the tip, if you can tell, completely white and bleached out. Now, that may be a combination of my tank parameters not really being the best for this coral, but I know it definitely has to do with the torch coral because I've watched the sweepers reach over here and just pretty much burn up this SPS coral. So I'm really gonna have to get my hands in there and try to remedy this, maybe move it over or frag it off and try to save what's remaining. I'll let you guys know what I end up deciding to do with this. Now, I will admit, I really mainly just been an LPS, softy, leather coral kind of guy in my tank. So adding these acros and the SPS is really just kind of experimenting. I was trying to get my feet wet to see if something can actually live in my tank. And I'll say it's failing miserably, to say the least. Now, it's pretty obvious this coral's not happy either. He's bleaching out along the bottom, especially on the top right as well. I think the torch coral's doing a number on him, and then maybe something to do with water quality, flow, and lighting, isn't doing him well either. So those are things I'm learning. I'm not really interested in chasing numbers to keep acros. Just want to see if it will live in my tank. I'm fairly happy with all the other corals. Everything else is thriving, so, some things can make it, some things can't, and it's all good with me. Now, I would say it's not all bad. Out of all my failed attempts, I did find one success. It's going to be this Stellaport coral. Now, I've actually had him in the tank for a little over 2 months. Been doing fantastic. Great polyp extension, color's great. No bleaching, no tissue receding, no issues at all. So I guess the lesson to be learned in this is if I'm going to put corals in my tank, just stick with the same family and species that's worked. And I think I'm going to just stick with bird's nests and these type of corals in the future if I do add any additional SPS. So just a lesson learned. If you got a mixed reef, and if you're not a perfectionist as far as chasing numbers, just find corals that will live in your tank with your numbers and just roll with it. So with that being said, I always try to keep realistic expectations with my corals. you know, as far as what I can keep, what I can't keep. You know, I may buy something, but I fully understand if it doesn't make it, you know, maybe it wasn't supposed to make it. It's all good. Now, one thing I can't really deal with is when I have a plan in mind as far as, you know, the color coordination of my tank. You know, if I want greens and purples and reds or oranges kind of in the same area, and then something not cooperate. That's exactly what's happening now. Now, if you guys have been following my channel, you may have noticed what's missing. For those who don't know, it's gonna be my rose bowl tipped anemone. So as you guys can imagine, I'm pretty frustrated with anemones at this point. So I'm pretty much giving this guy till payday. He's on the clock. If he doesn't move back somewhere that I want him by that point, I'm gonna replace him with a new coral, and then he's getting kicked out of my system. So, you know, these guys are more headache than they're worth, especially if you get one that keeps moving around as much as this one has. So, you know, if you're gonna deal with them, just understand, you know, you can't control them at all. They're gonna sting your corals. They're gonna move somewhere you don't want them. Just don't make them a focal point of your escape, because it's never guaranteed. So as far as the other corals in my tank, I'm really happy with how things are turning out. You know, my euphyllias are doing great, leathers are doing great, Duncan's still splitting, getting bigger. I mean, GSP's really covering that rock work, and surprisingly, it's still leaving the definition of the rock work, so I think that looks really nice. So, you know, everything's progressing. There's really only 3 areas of my tank I'm really going to try to address from this point forward. With first being, is going to be the pillar on the right. The front of it, you know, if that mining cap, if it grows like I want, I think that's going to be a nice feature there, especially if it starts plating upward. But until then, I really still have to fill that area in. So unsure which way I'm going to go. Maybe some candy cane or maybe some red rhodactis mushrooms kind of lining up from top to bottom. So I think that may be my plan there. And then as far as where the anemone used to be, that's going to be the biggest issue for now. Not really sure. You know, I may try to get some kind of branching hammer or something that's nice. I really feel like that's a main focal point in my tank. And I gotta spend some money to get something really nice for that area to do it justice. And then of course, last but not least, it's gonna be the left side of the tank. Now I'm considering that my high flow area of my tank. So I'm really limited as far as, you know, being able to put any soft corals or euphyllias over there. You know, besides that purple torch, that's really the only thing over there that can take that beating on a daily basis. So, you know, we'll see. You know, I may add some acans or start looking at those kind of corals, maybe some more encrusting corals. Especially if the SPS can't make it, or, you know, if that torch coil is going to sting everything. You know, I know you guys might be thinking, won't you just move the torch? Try to, you know, I've tried adjusting the inches here and there, but it just, you know, there's no escaping those tentacles. So, you know, beyond me just leaving that rockwork barren, I'm going to just have to deal with it and use corals that, you know, can dodge those tentacles and still make it. So let's go cover corals. Let's go ahead and get to the stock list. There has been a few changes. I'm going to go ahead and update you guys. So if you guys follow my channel, you already know about it. If not, check out last week's vid regarding ick and my thoughts on it. In a nutshell, ended up taking out 3 fish in my tank, my multi-bar angel, my blue diamond goby, and a judging goby in my system. Now, shortly after that video, I also ended up losing my lawnmower blenny. Now, I think that had something to do with ick, but that also had something to do with, you know, a lack of food source, because I pretty much eradicated the algae in my system, which means, you know, he didn't have a lot of food to eat. So unfortunately, he perished as well. So that's 4 fish total that I lost. So as you can imagine, I had to take a long, hard look at my remaining stock list, and I had to make a decision. You know, if I'm going to move forward and have ick in my system, I have to reduce the stress and keep these guys as healthy and happy as possible. So I ended up removing the bully. So I decided to go with a damsel-free tank, meaning that yellowtail damsel, that little terrorist I had in my system that pretty much was responsible for, you know, over half the deaths of my new fish and terrorizing everyone else that was left in the tank, he had to go. So one morning during the water change, you know, sometimes I change my water early in the morning before the lights come on. He was spooked out of his hiding spot. You know, it wasn't in my plans to catch him, but he was looking so helpless, you know, fumbling around the tank, moving so sluggish and slow, that I just had to net him. So, I mean, that was pretty much the end of his day and his career. So he is removed from the tank. And I'll tell you, by far, it's changed the attitude of my tank tremendously. So, you know, my clownfish seem a lot more peaceful. And now, as far as bullies that are left, the flame angel is the only thing. And he's always been the boss, and he's nowhere near as bad as that damsel was. So that's going to cover all my Stocklist changes. In a nutshell, everything got cut in half. I went from 10 fish down to 5. So the remaining fish I'm going to keep are going to be the yellow Corris Wrasse, Christmas Wrasse, my 2 clownfish, and my flame angel. There's one more little damsel, that yellow and black striped damsel, but he's actually on the way out. I'm going to catch him and remove him and just have those remaining 5 fish. My plan is keep a low stress, low bio-load tank, keep really good water quality and let these guys get happy and settle back in so we can get everything back rolling. Once everything looks like everything is okay, I may start adding fish later, but for now, it's the Stocklist I'm going to roll with. So, the plan is cut everything in half, cut my feedings in half, cut my water changes down from weekly to bi-weekly, and just let this tank kind of go on autopilot until I start adding more corals. So, pretty much going to cut this update here. Don't want to hold you guys for too much longer. So if you have any questions regarding, my parameters, stock list, equipment, I'm going to have all the information down below. I did just check my numbers here yesterday, so everything's up to date and accurate for you guys to keep track. So other than that, hope you guys enjoyed the quick update. Not a lot of changes, nothing significant, but, it's always good to get a look at the reef tank and, check up on everything. So, hey, you guys definitely like, comment, subscribe. You guys do what y'all do. Y'all be easy.